Paratatve sadalino Ram Krishna Samagnaya Yo Dharma Stapanarato Viresham Tam Namamyaham Viresham Tam Namamyaham. I salute Vivekananda, who is Vireshwar, the Lord of the heroes, who was constantly merged in the higher reality, who knew Sri Ramakrishna thoroughly and who worked to establish Dharma in this age. This is part of a hymn written by Swami Vivekananda for Swami Vivekananda. When Buddha preached his first message at Sarnath, that's a deer park. It's one of the pilgrimage centers now for Buddhists and Hindus also. They say he set in motion the wheel of Dharma. That's the reason why when we go to a Buddhist shrine or temple, there are these wheels, cylinders, and one has to go and spin them in honor of that first spinning of the wheel of Dharma. So Vivekananda also set in motion the wheel of Dharma. As he has said, I have a message for the West, like Buddha has a message for the East. And he set this wheel in motion here in 1893, not here, in the US, at Chicago, at the Parliament of Religions. He had traversed the US and he had also gone later to Europe, etc., with a short interlude to India for 2 years. His health had broken down. His doctor had said, you go for a long rest, go for a long sea voyage. And he had undertaken that long sea voyage, and he came back to the US. And he was staying at Stone Ridge, New York State, in what is called Ridgely Manor. That is another place of pilgrimage for the devotees of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. Josephine MacLeod was also present. That property belonged to Francis Leggett, who was a brother-in-law. And one day she gets a telegram saying, from a Mrs. Blodgett from LA, saying that her brother is seriously ill. And if you'd like to meet him, please come. And she had started immediately. And as she was leaving Stone Ridge to travel by train to LA, Swamiji says, set up some classes and I will come. So MacLeod arrived at LA at Mrs. Blodgett's house, and she was surprised to see a large picture of Swami Vivekananda. The picture is in the library there, hanging on the wall under the bed of her ailing brother. So she was surprised. her brother was ill, he was struck with tuberculosis. She asked Mrs. Blodgett, do you know who this person is? Oh, yes. I was there at the Parliament of Religions in 1893 in Chicago. She was from Chicago. And he says, if there is a God on man, he is that young man. And then she falls from the skies when MacLeod tells her that God-man is at Stone Ridge. If you will invite him, he'll come here to your house. That was, as I say, God send. Josephine MacLeod's brother dies in 3 weeks, and in 6 weeks, Swami Vivekananda reaches here by the California Express, the Santa Fe's California Express. He reaches here. He spends 6.5 months in California. And out of that, 2.5 months was in the LA and South Pasadena areas. So the lectures were all organized. He comes first, and one of the first things I got an opportunity when I come to LA was they had a tour bus, and all the places associated with Swami Vivekananda were seen by all the people there. So I saw most of the places out there. So he comes and he stays for a couple of days in what is called Mrs. Miller's house. And from there, then he shifts to Mrs. Blodgett's house. And she was thrilled to have Swami Vivekananda. She never attended his lectures. But she's saying, I'll keep the house warm and do all the cooking. And she was, as Swami Vivekananda said, hilarious, grandmotherly, pure, and full of fun. And she used to, and Swami Vivekananda used to have these, witty kind of intersections and repartees. She was very intelligent also. And she used to cook, and Swamiji, after the lecture, used to come, and now let us cook. And he used to go out, sit down on the kitchen floor and cook for her, and for the others also. So she was thrilled. All the lectures there were organized by MacLeod. She went around, and somehow he mentions in one of his letters, the work here seems to go on well. They are already acquainted with some of my books, especially Raja Yoga. Amazing. And Karma Yoga. Ida Ansel, we'll see some of her kind of contribution later on. She says the Raja Yoga was studied in the church at Oakland, and by a preacher, and they had regular classes on Raja Yoga. Imagine 125 years ago when Swamiji was here on this west coast. Amazing. One notable lecture MacLeod speaks about is, he had, in altogether, he had given about 32 major lectures besides the various parlor meetings and various interviews, etc. So one particular lecture was Christ the Messenger. And Swamiji, when he was speaking, he was radiating white light. And the people, of course, were stunned. They were just quiet. And the white light continued after the lecture. He came out of the hall They were in the horse carriage. They were going back home. And she was so quiet. She didn't want to disturb his mood. And is radiating white light. Then suddenly Swamiji says, I know how it is done. Then she's saying, what is done? She asks, how they make mulagatauni soup. That's a rasam. They put a bay leaf in it. And she was so frightened of breaking his mood. And here he was, so down to earth, though he was in that radiating the white light, etc. She says that lack of self-consciousness, that down to earth Swamiji shook MacLeod. And this was how he was at certain times of the day, as well as while speaking. He used to go in that high mood. As we've seen in that verse that I quoted, Paratatve Sadalino. He was always immersed in a higher reality. One devotee who used to attend his LA lectures, and she had also read his Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga. She was Alice Hansbrough. And Alice Hansbrough, she should travel from Pasadena to attend his lectures and then again return. Now we will see one of those great places in LA, Pasadena, is the Vivekananda house. If you ever get a chance, you should go there. I remember the first time I had dreamt about this place. And when I saw it, it wasn't what I'd dreamt about. So small. Of course, it was modified over the years. But as I went in, oh my God, that place was powerful, especially Swamiji's room. And you know how people cannot catch this is all the devotees who go are like stunned here. So there were these three sisters, they were called the Mead sisters. And it was a crowded place there. The three sisters, their father, the two sisters had one a 17-year-old son and a four-year-old daughter, which Swamiji adored, and she adored Swamiji. So they were Mrs. Carrie Mead Wyckoff, who later became Sister Lalita, Mrs. Alice Hansbrough, who later became Shanti, Sister Shanti, and Helen Mead. So he says that these three sisters, say, we must have been associated in some past lives. I know you three sisters well. And they in turn, they said, it was like living with Christ in the same house. Like as if Christ himself were in their midst. And he says that you three sisters have become a part of my mind forever. So he used to, from there, take a streetcar from Pasadena and come to LA, lecture and go back. And he stayed there for 6 weeks in that house. So one time Alice was following him down the stairs. And the stairs also, I thought they were like great big staircase. You know? But I saw it as kind of... And she was following him and she stumbled a little and she just held his shoulder for support. And she got such a shock. And Swamiji turned to her and she was like, he was like emitting power. And she felt that. I used to like to go to that place because for another reason. There was Swami Vivekananda, you know, he says, he had told her I always leave something behind wherever I go. I'm going to leave this pipe when I go to San Francisco. He left a pipe. So he had left a pipe and they had placed it on the mantelpiece. And after years, one of the sisters, she was not well, and she had a lot of stress and tension, even after all these years of meeting Swamiji and all that. Still, she's saying she was having personal difficulties, and her pain and her illness was so intense. So she just instinctively, she takes that pipe and she hears Swamiji's voice. Now this is a lapse of many decades. And then he hears the voice, "Is it so hard, madam?" Distinctly. And she takes that pipe and rubs it on her forehead. And immediately her pain and illness and everything disappears. Today that pipe is part of that pipe rather. The whole pipe is there, but they only give it to people who come there on a special day and they touch it too. So we used to go and touch it. I mean, that pipe is still there. And some of the furniture Swamiji used is also there. It's a small place. And Swamiji used to go out in the backyard and sit down there amongst the trees. So this was Pasadena, and it's saying from morning till sometimes evening, if there was no classes, he used to keep on talking, and they used to sit down and thrall. Ralph, one of the young nephew of which was there. So one time, Swamiji said, he used to always bring Swamiji's pipe, clean his clothes, shine his shoes, etc. So he used to say, "Ralph, can you see your own eyes?" "No, Swami, God is like that. You can see it only through a medium." So he's the closest of the close. The young girl, Dorothy, she used to sit on his lap and he used to read stories for her. And he used to check her books, what she used to study, to know how these stories could be incorporated in India. So he was learning from her also. This was his greatness. Even at that height, he could interact with everybody. So there were times when they found that he used to cook, and when he used to cook, he used to make things so spicy. He used to tell the sisters, "You enjoy this?" "Oh yes." And the tears are streaming down there. "Oh yes." Saying, if a Vivekananda can cook for me, the least I can do is eat. So we have, he was, as I say, as the biographer said, down to earth, and yet he was so lofty. I remember standing on that same porch and on the lawn where Swami Vivekananda, I said, this is the place. Oh. And in a way, the place is blessed, the West Coast. We got that particular house, etc. So from there, he left Pasadena for San Francisco. But, the biographers say this was a turning point in his message and in his life. He had said, "I will not see 40." And he was already 37. And he celebrated his birthday, this 12th, you can say, January, in LA. So he knew this time was coming up. And he was giving his message. his first trip to the US and his first mission, where he put things very coherently, philosophically. He was showing the harmony between the Dvaita, that is dualism, qualified non-dualism, non-dualism, between science, religion, between the yogas and all these things. He gave his lectures correctly, well reasoned out. But during the second visit here to LA, as well as to San Francisco, it's like he had let loose. There was no kind of structure. He just went on giving his message. And what was the message? He had also learned from the West. You see, he was very perceptive. He had traveled the US, he had traveled Europe, and before he could go to India and return. So now he could understand much more clearly how the message has to be delivered, in what form. And he was, let's say, in a hurry to do his work. And at times you could see that there was a kind of sometimes an impatience. He was pushing himself. And there was a very powerful expenditure of energy. At the same time, that energy was in the crucible of perfect stillness. So we see both of dynamism as well as the silent depths of meditation. Because Sri Ramakrishna said Narendra is a great soul. And he had said, Narendra will teach the world. He had written, Naren Shikka Devi, Naren will teach the world. And he had rebelled against it. No, I want. Saying, you rascal, even your bones will do my work. So he was, as I say, pushed into this world of work. And we can see how in his public life was very short, 7 or 8 years. And what he has accomplished, and all great teachers are like that. So when you one of his biographers says that these prophets, they undergo that intense pain as well as that intense joy also in their work. And all the prophets are like that. So 6 years ago, we can see that when he had first come to the Chicago, and then he had changed. And he was, as I said, in a hurry to deliver things. One of his, you can say, there was a stenographer who was taking down some of them. We have been able to get 18 of his LA lectures. He visited mainly the Shakespeare Club and delivered lectures. Everything was not rosy, you see. There were financial difficulties, there were attacks, and there was a lot of opposition also. And so he stood his ground, and at times the people used to leave the auditorium. And he should tell one of the meat sisters, don't worry, madam, don't be bothered. I have cleared whole halls in New York. And he wasn't mincing any words anymore. So at times he was so hilarious. So when he was speaking about, in Oakland, he was speaking about reincarnation. And somebody says, do you remember all your past lives? He's saying, yes, since I was a child. And at another time, somebody asks, have you seen God? Do I look it, madam? A big fat man like me, do I look it? So he used to swing from one side to the other. And this was his kind of natural state. So you must understand that he is in the state what is called a Paramahansa. So the whole world is nothing but, he has written, a mud puddle. We sing in our Vespers hymn. So the whole world is like a mud puddle. So he's like a mud puddle. He's playing in the mud, stamping on it. So he also goes through technical school to see how that institution was training people in the trades, the various skills. And because he wanted to incorporate some of these things in India, which he did later on, of course. And today the Throop Institute, Technical Institute, is now what is called Caltech. So he was there. So February 22nd, 1900, he reached San Francisco from LA. So it was a long drive, he's saying. And one of the sisters, Mead sisters, Mrs. Hansborough, she had gone ahead to arrange everything. And he's saying she is so busy working. She's not taking a break at all. And they used to travel together, and there was to Oakland and back, there was a 25-minute trip. So one Mr. Allen, he used to attend his lectures. We'll see who later became the president of the Vedanta Society of Northern California. He says, going home after a lecture, I was walking on air. When I got home, I was still acting like a crazy man. When I was asked what sort of man Swami Vivekananda was, I replied, he is not a man, he is a God. I can never forget the impression he produced on me. What a wonder. I followed him at every lecture. So he himself said, the people of California have been prepared for me by my writings and the various newspaper, you can say, reports. And in those days, something out of the ordinary comes, and people used to go and check them out. And there were all some spicy things also mentioned about Swami Vivekananda. Mainly, the Christian missionaries had railed against him, and all those kind of gossips and all these things were taken and put together, and people were curious to know, who's this person who's coming? Let us see. So at times we had a lot of opposition, resistance also from people. And he used to say, you ask me whatever questions I have, or you have, and I will answer them. My job is here to make you understand. And that used to break the ice. They should laugh. So this is, so he should travel by streetcar, ferry, and this and that in LA, in the Bay Area, in San Francisco. There was one girl, she was about 22, 23, Ida Ansel. Yes, she will forever be remembered for her great contribution. So she was a young girl on the East Coast, and her mother had shifted here, and she also had come along here. And in the meantime, she was more like a semi-orphaned girl. And in the meantime, she said, by the time I came here to California when I was 10, I had already developed a limp. She used to walk with a limp. And she was practicing stenography. And she used to go to places and, just to practice her stenographic skills. So she used to go to the Home of Truth, and then she heard of Swami Vivekananda, and she used to go there to listen to him. And she used to take down his lectures. But in the meantime, she was so enthralled by his speech. She was like, in shock, as it were. She should sit down dumb. And then immediately come back to consciousness. Oh, she take down notes. So most of Swamiji's lectures during the second visit were done by her. In fact, she took the stenographic notes and she's saying these are personal things. She was called baby by Swami Turiyananda. Swami Turiyananda was very fond of her, and so was Swami Trigunatitananda. So she had bunches of these stenographic notes. And she said, no, personal, this personal. Only in 1945, yes, after 45 years, she thought that this is too valuable and it should be for the world. And then she started taking down all those in longhand. And fortunately, her memory was not bad, but there were some gaps. And Swami Ashokananda, who later came and who was a minister in San Francisco, he and Swami Prabhavananda, they inserted some words in parentheses. So this was her great contribution. And she passed away in Hollywood, of course, and in 1955. So it was because of her that most of Swamiji's lectures are now, and they are spread all over the country. In fact, the bulk of Swamiji's lectures taken by a single person, apart from Goodwin, was Ida Ansel. So one Christina Albers writes, when she first heard him. So she goes, and there was a huge crowd, and she sees Swamiji has just entered. He's saying, I can see that he is not well. I notice his eyelids are swollen and he looked like one who suffers pain. He stood for a while in silence before he spoke. And then, like all people who noticed it, and said, thank God she records it, I saw a change. His countenance brightened, and I thought his very features were different now. He began to speak, and there was a transformation, and the soul force of the Swami, the great man, became visible. I felt the tremendous force of his speech that were felt more than they were heard. I was drawn into a sea of being, of feelings of a higher existence, from which it seems almost like pain to emerge when the lecture was finished. And then those eyes, how wonderful! They were like shooting stars, shooting forth from them in constant flashes. This was Swami Vivekananda. When he spoke, he was completely transformed. He became one with what he was speaking. And what was he speaking? Speaking the highest truth. They say, we saw him, as I said, Paratatve Sadalino. He was always immersed in that higher. We find these things also happening in the case of Shri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother also. Suddenly their whole personality kind of changes. The mask drops, the human mask drops, and they see a God there. So there was again another one, Mr. Ernest Brown. So he says somebody with an orange robe comes and enters inside, and he says, who is that? An emperor? He walked with a lordly gait. And you say, it's looked like a person who was used to rule. He walks like a god. Say. And when he sat down, there was a thunderous applause and people applauding. But he sat there, his face unmoving, his face reflecting a perfect calm within. Then he rose and held up his hands with his palms facing the audience. And at once there was silence that you could feel. It was so intense, so palpable. I said to my companion, who is this person who can make such a large audience like this yield and in a moment make them silent? He was obviously accustomed in commanding others. So here we find that Sri Ramakrishna says, like he had given him the power of attorney, as it were, power of authority to deliver his message. And we find that he was delivering it. In one of his letters, he says, I will not any-ize it, not Christianize it or any-ize it. I will only my-ize it. And I will deliver my message in my style. So, there were the oppositions, like to, sometimes he used to say things sometimes which were not very comfortable people. As we have seen that he was in a hurry to deliver his message and go. So he used to see people also, he used to meet people and say, they meet him and say, oh Swami, I have to go. Why is this all the Americans always such in a big tearing hurry all the time? Those things haven't changed much, I think. So there was another gentleman who had a job of introducing Swami. And he says, he was introducing Swami, but in a few minutes, the first time you say, he was to become almost overpoweringly aware of the vastness of Swamiji's being. I felt like a pygmy and saw him as an immense giant. After this experience, I could not bring myself to stand beside him anymore. Thereafter, I always made my introduction from the foot of the platform. There was Swami Atulananda, who he met Swamiji in New York, and then later he shifted here. He looked after the San Francisco work. He was a Dutch originally, Dutchman. And his name was Gurudas. So he says, when I used to see Swamiji, he used to look like us ordinary. When he's in a jovial mood or something like that, he's sitting down. And then the hostess comes and says, it's time for a talk. And he's sitting there with his bathrobe and tousled hair. And he just nods. And he goes inside his room and in a few minutes returns with a long turban tied perfectly and dressed. So he says, see how much power is there in his everyday actions also. If anybody tries to tie that turban, I tell you, I tried it. It takes at least half an hour for those. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a Rajasthani turban. Yeah. And the Raja of Khetri is one of the ministers. He had taught him how to tie. It's a very distinctive way of tie. People in the desert, semi-desert regions in India, they wear those turbans. And the people know you from the turban you wear, the way you wear. Oh yes. So that was. So you could see, and that strip of cloth is a very long one. I think maybe 7 or 8 meters. 7 or 8 feet, sorry. And he dresses and comes. And then he's saying, when I saw him on the platform, he looked like somebody who's towering above me, some 10 or 11 feet tall. And Swamiji used to pace up and down. There were no standard mics, there. Now we have these clip-on mics. But he used to pace up and down. He's saying that energy was so restless there in him. He used to pace up and down. And his pacing was like a lion pacing up and down. So this was how he used to lecture. And you can imagine when there were no microphones, he had to use his voice. And his voice was one of the most beautiful voices. Some of the reminiscences that we say, it's more like a Chinese gong. It was deep and resonant and beautiful. Sri Ramakrishna used to go in samadhi when he used to hear him singing. He used to intersperse his talk with Sanskrit quotations. He used to chant in his mellifluous voice. And his chanting was so enthralling. And then he should translate it. And when he used to speak, he was like, in a different world. He was oblivious of time, of place, of persons and everything. And similarly, the audience also used to feel a kind of disconnect with time and space and circumstances, and they used to feel a connect with him. And he used to raise everybody through his power. So people, they say, we got a glimpse of eternity there when we looked at him and he spoke of it. So this glimpse of eternity was what Swamiji. So some of his biographies, wherever he went, he, as it were, he sowed the seeds of future spirituality. They will germinate, and they are germinating. Wherever he has gone now, there are centers. Apart from centers, these will, as it were, hold in check some of the crazy things that this young civilization is trying. The US is still young comparatively to the other older civilizations. So these will be part and parcel of the spiritual mind of the people of this country. And that was what he was doing. He was changing the very structure of national life. So in April 8, 1900, he delivered his last lectures, Is Vedanta the Future Religion? And a lot of centers, especially in Berkeley and San Francisco, they have published calendars. And we are checking out almost every day from January 1st, this year, every day there is a lecture. And where he met some persons, where he lectured, on what he lectured. So continuously from December 18th, he began lecturing, 1899, till April 8, 1900, he was constantly lecturing every day. I don't have to tell you the various titles. Most of this are now in the complete works, and they have been documented well. So he gave his Vedanta Future. It was a message given directly to this age. He's saying, by a living messenger who spoke with intense faith in his mission and in himself. So he knew what he was and what his mission was. As I said, one of his quotation was, and I will speak and teach, I, a child of God. So he knew what he was, and he knew his message, and he was giving it his style, without now any trappings of logic, etc. It came straight, as some of the studies have shown it came like a sword falling down straight on her. The sword of knowledge, because Ramakrishna has said that he was like an unsheathed sword, constantly cutting Maya. And he's saying every word was like a kind of a bombshell. He was indifferent to praise and blame. And we see initially, in the first visit, he was a little more cautious and this and that. People are saying, do this and do that and all that. Because he was completely new. They should select what he would wear, the colors and this and that and everything. Now everything is over. Nobody is going to dictate anything. So he was completely indifferent to praise, blame, this, that. He's going to ride roughshod on people or no. So on May 30th then, he left San Francisco for Chicago. So he went on his way from the East Coast, New York, Stone Ridge. He had stopped at Chicago because he wanted to meet his Hale sisters, Margaret, McKinley and all these things. They were these 4 sisters. And he used to call their father Pope and their mother Church. They were the ones who first brought him to their home when he was sitting down in Chicago on the edge of the pavement. And they had come in. So lifelong, they were part of his, became part of his life and his family. So he goes back. In the meantime, Nivedita also was a year lecturing in Chicago for her work in India. Yes, it was because she had started a school and she was collecting funds and etc., etc. And she was telling people what her mission was going to be in India. So he also, on his return trip also, he goes back to Chicago, and from Chicago, he leaves for the East Coast. From there, of course, we know he was supposed to go to Paris because he had already got an invitation to attend some Congress of religions there. And besides, Francis Leggett had invited him to Paris. So he goes to Paris. This 125 years celebrations in California have been kicked off by the Vedanta Society of Berkeley. And the first lectures were organized in Oakland, in the church there. It's that church, that Union Church, where he delivered at least 12 lectures. And the minister there, Reverend Fay Mills, he was one who had also attended the Chicago Parliament of Religion, and he was so thrilled to have Swamiji there. And for him, Swamiji coming down to that place in Oakland and delivering lectures. So most of his lectures in Oakland were there. So Oakland, Alameda, and then in the Bay Area, of course, all over. It was here that he had been given a kind of a gift of land, which is called the Shanti Ashram. It's a huge property. It is near Mount Wilson's Observatory. If you have not gone there, you should. It's one of those places that it's another pilgrimage site. He left there and then he reached India, and we know that in a few years, not few years, he passed away July 4th, 1901. So he saw that, and we used to wonder, why did he pass away so quickly? He just exhausted whatever he had to give, fulfilled his master's mission. And also saying, if I don't leave, those the brother disciples and his disciples will not be able to grow. So you see, this large-heartedness also is there. He wanted each and every one of us to grow. One of his lectures, it happened in the first visit. So he was lecturing and people were raised up. They became oblivious of everything and they were all in the heightened state of mind, bordering on samadhi. So he could give people the experience of samadhi only through his lectures. And then suddenly he stopped and he walked out of there. And everybody else, like they came crashing down. Saying, why? Then he asked, why did you stop? Saying, I could see I was molding their minds like a soft putty. I could mold their minds like that, the way I wanted. So you should have done that. Say, no, that is not my message. My message is, each man should chalk out and carve out their own destiny. And that was the personal freedom that he had given. So when he had left India for the second trip to the West, he had told Nivedita, yes, the older I grow, I see that everything lies in manliness. And this will be my gospel. So that manliness, that of course not womanliness also, that character building, that was his message for all of us. And it will be there for all times. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. Yes, before we go, we have a few announcements. Next Sunday, we will be speaking Shri Ram Krishna's object of worship, Holy Mother. Because we have that, there's a small Kali Puja celebrated. It's called the Shodashi Puja, where Shri Ram Krishna worshipped Holy Mother. So in honor of that, we'll be speaking on Shri Ram Krishna. This evening we have Ram Nam. Wednesday, 7 p.m. As we know, we have the Gospel of Shri Ram Krishna by Swami Vivekananda. The Gospel of the Holy Mother, Thursday, by Swami Brahmatmananda. Friday, Self-Knowledge, 7 p.m. here. Saturday, again, Karma Yoga at Tapovan. Yesterday we had a Karma Yoga. Now, those who couldn't come here will get another opportunity to go at Tapovan. And we have Mother's Children, of course. Yeah. No questions. We can take our questions. Om, peace, peace.